The rise of Nazi Germany. After World War I, Germany faced significant political, economic, and social turmoil, which had long-lasting effects on the country. Treaty of Versailles, 1919. The peace treaty imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including territorial losses, military restrictions, and large reparations payments. It also stripped Germany of its colonies and much of its industrial territory, such as the Saar Basin and the Rhineland. These conditions left the country deeply humiliated and economically burdened. Economic problems. Germany's economy was devastated by the war, and the reparations worsened the situation. Hyperinflation became a major issue in the early 1920s, peaking in 1923 when the currency became virtually worthless. The economic crisis was further exacerbated by the Great Depression, which led to widespread unemployment and poverty. Political instability. The Weimar Republic was established in 1919, but it struggled with political instability. There were frequent changes in government, extremist movements on both the left, like the Spartacists, and the right, like the Freikorps and the Nazi Party, and the constant threat of revolution. This instability contributed to the eventual rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. Social consequences. The war's devastation and the subsequent economic crisis caused immense suffering for ordinary Germans. Many people faced food shortages, homelessness, and widespread poverty. The loss of millions of soldiers and civilians also left the country mourning, and there was a growing sense of betrayal, known as the stab-in-the-back myth, which claimed that Germany had been betrayed by its civilian leaders rather than defeated on the battlefield. Rise of extremism. In the wake of these crises, extremist political movements, including the National Socialists, Nazis, gained popularity by exploiting widespread discontent. The Nazis promised to restore Germany's strength, reverse the Treaty of Versailles, and rebuild the economy. Overall, Germany's situation after World War I was one of deep hardship, instability, and disillusionment, which eventually paved the way for the rise of Nazi totalitarianism and the start of World War II. The effects of the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles, signed on June 28, 1919, had profound and far-reaching effects on Germany and the world. The treaty was intended to officially end World War I, but its terms created lasting consequences. 1. Territorial losses. Loss of territory. Germany lost significant territories, including all of its overseas colonies, and areas in Europe like Alsace-Lorraine, given back to France, the Saar Basin, administered by France, and Malmedy, given to Belgium. The city of Danzig, now Gdansk, Poland, was declared a free city, and the Polish Corridor was created, giving Poland access to the sea. Rhineland demilitarization. Germany was required to demilitarize the Rhineland, leaving it vulnerable to potential French aggression and contributing to feelings of insecurity. 2. Military restrictions. Army limitations. The German military was drastically reduced to a 100,000-man army, a far cry from its pre-war size. The conscription system was abolished, and the country was forbidden from having an air force, submarines, or tanks. Naval limitations. The German Navy was reduced to a small fleet of ships, and its fleet of submarines was disbanded entirely. This left Germany with limited military capabilities to defend itself. 3. Reparations. Reparations payments. Germany was required to pay large sums in reparations to the Allied nations, particularly France and Belgium, as compensation for the war damage. The total sum was initially set at 132 billion gold marks, about $33 billion at the time, which Germany struggled to pay. This burden contributed to economic collapse and hyperinflation in the 1920s. 4. War Guilt Clause. Article 231, War Guilt Clause. This clause placed full responsibility for the war on Germany and its allies. It humiliated the German people and fueled the narrative of a stab in the back, where they believed they were betrayed by their own leaders rather than defeated in battle. 5. Political and economic instability. Weak Weimar Republic. the treaty created deep resentment in Germany and undermined the legitimacy of the newly established Weimar Republic. Many Germans felt that the treaty was unjust and that their country had been treated unfairly. This fostered a sense of nationalism and revanchism, which the Nazi Party later exploited. Economic hardship, the reparations, territorial losses, and military restrictions severely damaged Germany's economy. Inflation skyrocketed in the early 1920s, and the country struggled to rebuild after the devastation of the war. The Great Depression, 1929, worsened the situation, leading to massive unemployment and social unrest. 6. Social consequences. Loss of faith in democracy. The treaty's harsh terms contributed to the disillusionment of many Germans, leading to a loss of faith in democratic institutions. This sense of betrayal and humiliation made it easier for extremist groups, like the Nazis, to gain support by promising to overturn the treaty and restore Germany's power. 7. Impact on the global stage. Creation of the League of Nations. The treaty established the League of Nations, an international organization aimed at promoting peace and preventing future wars. However, the League was weak, as the United States did not join, and its authority was undermined by the rise of aggressive powers like Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. Redrawing of borders. The treaty led to the creation of new countries and borders in Europe and the Middle East. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was dissolved, and countries like Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and Poland were formed. The Ottoman Empire was also dismantled, and its territories were divided between Britain and France under mandates. 8. Long-term consequences. Rise of Nazism and World War II. The harsh terms of the treaty and its effects on German society helped create the conditions that enabled Adolf Hitler's rise to power. His promises to reject the treaty, rebuild Germany's military, and restore its territorial integrity resonated with a population disillusioned by the Versailles terms, directly contributing to the outbreak of World War II in 1939. The Treaty of Versailles is often seen as a catalyst for many of the political, economic, and social problems that followed in Europe, making it a controversial and deeply debated document in history. The rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. The rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party was a complex process influenced by a variety of political, economic, and social factors in Germany following World War I. Here's an overview of the key stages and factors that contributed to the Nazi Party's rise to power. 1. Post-World War I conditions. Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, left Germany humiliated, economically crippled, and politically unstable. Many Germans believed the treaty was unfair, fueling resentment and nationalism. Hitler and the Nazi Party capitalized on this sentiment by promising to undo the treaty and restore Germany's former greatness. Economic hardship. Germany's economy was devastated by the war and the massive reparations imposed by the Treaty of Versailles. The hyperinflation crisis of 1923 and the Great Depression that began in 1929 led to widespread unemployment, poverty, and social unrest. The economic instability provided fertile ground for extremist political movements like the Nazis, who promised solutions to the economic crisis. 2. Formation of the Nazi Party. Hitler's early years. Adolf Hitler joined the German Workers' Party, DAP, in 1919, which would later become the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, or the Nazi Party. Hitler quickly became its most charismatic and influential leader. His powerful oratory skills, passionate speeches, and ability to tap into nationalistic and anti-Semitic sentiments helped him rise within the party. The Beer Hall Putsch, 1923. In November 1923, Hitler attempted a failed coup, known as the Beer Hall Putsch, in Munich. The coup was crushed, and Hitler was arrested. However, his trial brought him national attention. During his imprisonment, he wrote his manifesto, Mein Kampf, where he outlined his vision for Germany's future, including his extreme nationalist, anti-Semitic, and expansionist beliefs. 3. The Nazi Party's appeal. Propaganda and charisma. Hitler and the Nazi Party were masters of propaganda. They utilized modern techniques of mass communication, including radio broadcasts, films, and rallies, to spread their message of nationalism, anti-Semitism, and anti-communism. Hitler presented himself as Germany's savior, promising to restore national pride and revive the economy. Scapegoating: Hitler and the Nazis blamed Jews, communists, and other minority groups for Germany's problems, including the loss of World War I, the economic crisis, and the instability caused by the Treaty of Versailles. Anti-Semitic rhetoric became central to the Nazi ideology and played a major role in their rise to power. 4. The Great Depression, 1929. The global economic collapse triggered by the Great Depression was a major turning point for the Nazi Party. As millions of Germans lost their jobs and livelihoods, people turned to extremist parties in search of solutions. The Nazi Party promised to end unemployment, rebuild the military, and restore Germany's economy. Their support grew dramatically during this time. Electoral success: in the early 1930s, the Nazi Party gained increasing support in national elections. In the July 1932 Reichstag elections, the Nazis became the largest party in the German parliament, though they did not have an outright majority. This marked a major breakthrough in their quest for power. 5. Political maneuvering. Appointment as chancellor: in 1932, despite their electoral success, the Nazis were unable to secure a majority in the Reichstag. Hitler sought to gain power through political maneuvering. In January 1933, after a series of backroom deals and pressure from conservative elites, President Paul von Hindenburg appointed Hitler as Chancellor of Germany. The Reichstag fire, 1933. Shortly after Hitler became Chancellor, the Reichstag, Parliament, building was set on fire. The Nazis used the fire as a pretext to convince Hindenburg to issue an emergency decree suspending civil liberties, which allowed the Nazis to arrest political opponents and suppress dissent. 6. Consolidation of power. The Enabling Act, 1933. In March 1933, the Reichstag passed the Enabling Act, which gave Hitler dictatorial powers. The act effectively allowed Hitler to govern without the need for parliamentary approval. This gave the Nazi regime the legal foundation to establish a totalitarian state. Elimination of political opposition: with the Enabling Act in place, the Nazis moved quickly to eliminate political opposition. They banned all other political parties, arrested and murdered political rivals, including communists and social democrats, and suppressed trade unions. The Nazi Party became the only legal political entity in Germany. Control of society: the Nazis quickly took control of all aspects of German life, including education, the media, and cultural institutions. They used propaganda to enforce their ideology, and they established the Gestapo, secret police, to eliminate dissent and instill fear. 7. Establishment of a totalitarian regime. Repression and terror: the Nazis established a brutal police state, where opposition was silenced through terror. The SA, Sturmabteilung, and the SS, Schutzstaffel, played key roles in carrying out violence against perceived enemies, including Jews, political dissidents, and other minorities. Expansionism and aggression: Hitler's ultimate goal was to expand Germany's territory and establish a greater German empire. The regime pursued aggressive foreign policies, leading to the remilitarization of the Rhineland, 1936, the annexation of Austria, Anschluss, in 1938, and the occupation of Czechoslovakia. This laid the groundwork for World War II. 8. The role of anti-Semitism. The Holocaust. Central to Nazi ideology was the belief in the racial superiority of the Aryan race and the need to eliminate Jews, whom the Nazis blamed for Germany's problems. Anti-Semitic laws, including the Nuremberg Laws, 1935, were enacted, and millions of Jews were persecuted. This ultimately led to the Holocaust, in which 6 million Jews, along with millions of other minorities, were systematically murdered. Conclusion. The rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party was driven by a combination of economic hardship, political instability, and Hitler's ability to exploit nationalistic, anti-Semitic, and anti-communist sentiments. By the early 1930s, the Nazis had become the dominant political force in Germany, and by 1933, Hitler had consolidated power and established a totalitarian regime. This set the stage for aggressive expansionism and the outbreak of World War II.